This is the Lincoln Journal-Star editorial board interview with Lin Quenzer, candidate for clerk of district court. Lin, thank you so much for being with us today. You're going to do a lot of the talking, but before then, I'd like another person who may do a little bit of talking and his guests to introduce themselves. Kent?
Yeah, I'm Kent Walgamot. I write about arts and entertainment, and I've been on the editorial board for over a decade, and that was Tashi the cat, and he may or may not return during the time.
And Tashi has no voice in the editorial board endorsements, so just to be clear. Okay, well, so Lin, we'd like to start off to have you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then this is a little bit different from some of our other interviews with gubernatorial candidates and those hot button issues. So, but why you want this office, and what experiences and attributes qualify you for it?
Well, I am Lin Quenzer, and currently I am the ombudsman for the city of Lincoln, and I am entering my 24th year of service to the city in that position. And I'm also the pastor at Lincoln's Native American church, Sacred Winds. I've been there since 2014. So I'm good at juggling between different issues. They're both service positions, however. And the position that I'm running for is also a service position. And though the clerk of the district court is an administrative office, it is a very important office because it touches so many people's lives in such fundamental ways. And the reason that it is an elected office is because that demands the public trust. And I believe that I have all of the qualifications to continue to utilize the public trust that I've gained as ombudsman and in my other professional life.
All right. So what obviously there's a certain amount of work that just has to get done in the district court offices, but what are your priorities? What are the things that matter most to you that you'd like to accomplish if elected?
Well, my priorities are to provide equitable access for all the services that are provided by the clerk of the district court's office. And that means not only providing services to the judiciary, to the judges and the court officials, but to the attorneys and to the public that needs to use the services of the district court. You know, the office is responsible for taking in alimony and child support. These are really fundamental issues for a lot of our population. They also take in fines and set court dates and put together jury pools so that people can have a fair hearing of their concerns. And those are all issues that really demand a lot of attention. To be able to make sure that people are able to access that, the general public, the actual folks who need to use them, not simply the attorneys. The Nebraska Supreme Court, as of January 1st of this year, has mandated that all the forms used by the clerk of the district court be publicly available so that you don't have to hire an attorney necessarily to, for instance, file for a name change or ask a change in your child support. Those things have to be available in a speedy fashion. And that's something that I want to prioritize. At the city of Lincoln, we have streamlined our access to city services, and that has provided just an enormous boost in our transparency at the city. And I was a big part of making that happen at the city of Lincoln, and I would very much like to do that for the court system as well.
Well, you talked about some of the changes that you've been able to be part of. Are there other things that are that you see on the horizon, or trends that that the district court offices will need to embrace? Maybe not immediately, but down the line.
I see that there's a growing interest, and rightly so, to have more courts that divert from the incarceration model of enforcement. And I think that, things like drug court, veterans court, mental health court, those things are going to continue to expand, and they're going to continue to need more support. And I know that the clerk's office has a large role to play in that, in staffing for those court appearances and for the functions that happen as a result of those types of innovations that have been happening. And I'm very pleased to see that the state of Nebraska is really embracing some of those things. And I think I can bring a lot to bear to be able to improve those types of accesses and to improve our employees at the clerk's office ability to carry out those functions through training and education, and through just getting to know how to interact better at a higher level with the judiciary.
What about technological type things? I mean, there are concerns with, cybersecurity, but at the same time, the more you're able to automate and make available online, the better. Where do you see this office going technologically? What would you like to see?
Well, as all of the county and city offices, we have an in-house system, information services, that does all of our security and handles all of the vetting of our apps and things like that to make sure that we are really, really secure. And they do a really bang up job of that. We have a number of apps that we use in the city that they make sure, and that the vendors also make sure, because those contracts are vetted very closely by our IT security in the city and county. And I have really strong relationships with that crew over there in IS, Information Services, to bring forward. And I have full confidence that they can make sure that we are safe.
This is maybe I'm naive, and I've spent more time interviewing candidates for other offices, but this is a partisan office. So in what ways does your party affiliation inform the way you would carry out the duties of the clerk of district court?
Well, I am a Democrat, and I think that party affiliation is probably more important for, as you said, more political offices. This office is an administrative office, and as such, I bring my personal morals to that office, my good name, and my ability to get the job done. The fact that I'm a Democrat doesn't really mean a whole lot in this particular race, I don't believe, other than the fact that, I do believe that everyone has the ability and should have the ability to have fair and free access to their government, and, to be able to do that and hold the budget to where it should be, because we all are accountable for what we do. And I believe in that kind of accountability. And I think that that's something that the Democratic Party also believes in for their elected officials.
All right. Well, I am down to one final question, Lynn, because you're very efficient, but Kent is leaning forward, and I have learned from many of these interviews that that's his body language. He is ready to ask and drag us off into the weeds.
All right, Kent.
This isn't about water, is it?
No, it's
Okay.
not.
That's his pet issue. So I figured we were safe.
You sort of referred to this a couple times, but I think people, including myself, can find dealing with the clerk of the district court a bit confusing and sometimes almost intimidating, right?
Yes. Yes.
And is there a way to make that process for the average person, right? For the non-lawyer, a little more, a little less intimidating and a lot easier to understand?
That is one of the primary reasons why I am running. The office should not be intimidating. We have three branches of government: the legislative, the judicial, and the executive. And people have no problems coming to the executive branch, which in Lincoln would be the mayor or the county board, or the legislative, which would be the city council and again the county board. But when it comes to accessing the judicial branch, there's just crickets in the night. And I have never operated under those premise. And I think it should be very friendly and very accessible. I've already done some outreach to some nonprofit groups that help with legal issues to try and bring them in so that we can really make this office accessible and friendly. So you're not afraid to come up to the counter. You're not afraid to speak to anyone. My door will be open at any time for anyone who wishes to come in and have things explained more about what this office does. We need to have the basics of how this office functions made clear to the public so that they don't feel afraid, so that they're not threatened in trying to access what is their right as a taxpayer and as a citizen to access the courts, and that has to happen. And I plan to go through and meet with staff and meet with the officials of the courts and find out how we can do this better and how we can lighten their burden and how we can automate to make sure that the budget doesn't get blown up in the process.
So Kent, sounds like you might have paid more fines in your life than I have, maybe.
That would probably be correct.
Okay, we won't go into that any deeper.
Sort of almost along those lines, and you mentioned that. It seems to me that in a lot of these county offices, there's an effort to keep the staffing at just the level it needs to be at. But have you seen a need for increased staffing or any of those kind of measures that might cost a little money to make the office run the way you think it should?
You know, the actual budget itself is approved by the county board. So the ultimate control over that spending is not, under the control of the clerk's office. But I do believe that staffing through the pandemic, I know that there have been issues across all sectors of our economy. And as a result of that, I know that there are probably some vacancies and some different things that are budgeted for that probably need to be filled or otherwise reallocated through the use of technology. So until I actually have those figures in hand, I can't really speak to that. But I don't intend to have to spend any more than what is, what the county board is already willing to allocate.
This is kind of a quote political question, but I see your yard signs or whatever out there. Do you get much response from people about this? Do people even pay the remotest attention to this
Yes.
sort of election?
I have been absolutely honored with the response of the public to this, and I'm going to try not to choke up here because it truly has been amazing. I have contact from the public just doing outreach back to me, and that's a really humbling thing. And I'm very grateful to the public that they have that kind of interest and that kind of trust. I think that for such a smaller race like this, to get people doing the outreach that they've been doing back to me to find out what they can do to, get a yard sign or get whatever to try and support my candidacy has been really outstanding. And I'm very appreciative of that. And I'm very appreciative that people really want to engage with government because that's the greater issue that I believe that speaks to. I've got some wonderful volunteers and I've got some great people helping me in the background with the technology, to do interviews and things like that. But by golly, folks are just, really reaching out, and I'm so appreciative of that. And I welcome that. If people have questions, if they want to know more about what this office does or how we can help to make it better, I very much open door. I want to hear from people. Absolutely.
All right, Kent, are you done?
I'm done.
All right, well then we're off to the last question here. The last question is simply, what have we not asked you that you wish we would have?
Oh, my.
It can be a closing statement too, or your stump speech, whatever you
Sure.
like.
Well, I think that the Journal Star does a really good job of vetting candidates. And I have always been a person who is a consumer of the Fourth Estate. And I appreciate what the media does to try and help ferret out good candidates from bad. And you're fair about that, and I appreciate that. I also know that people like this type of media where you can actually see and do podcasts and have things live. So I appreciate the opportunity to do this actual outreach to the public. And I would very much appreciate everyone's vote on November 8th of this year. I thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lynn. Hardly anybody ever uses their closing statement to say nice things about us, so that's really welcome. We might have to play that back in slow motion over and over.
Okay.
So,
Well, I think it's important that we have access for voters to really make good decisions. And I'm very appreciative to do that at any opportunity to get my message out there. And I thank you for your time allowing me to do so.
all right, well, and we thank you, Lynn, for answering our questions and being with us today. And we wish you the best in the rest of your campaign. And with that, I believe we are concluded. Oh, wait.
I have one just technical question. When do you think the decisions will be made, and how will this air?
Well, the way this will work is we want to give your opponent ample time to respond and get that interview done. In some instances, the opponent doesn't want to do an interview, or we've given them enough chances, and then we give up, and then we just make the best decision that we can based on the knowledge that we have of both candidates. I can't give you an exact date because we don't have your opponent scheduled. I can tell you that with early voting, we try to pressure folks to get interviewed early so that we can get our endorsements out. Because again, we don't want to be endorsing somebody right before the election. We want to give voters a chance to write letters to the editor and say we were brilliant or we were stupid or whatever. We want to start the conversation and let the readers finish it. So very vague answer to you. I don't know, but as quickly as we can.
I think early voting starts October 3rd, if I'm not mistaken.
It may be that.
I think the 8th, maybe the 3rd or the 8th.
Yeah,
The 3rd or the 8th. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll kind of look for it around then.
Yeah, we'll try not to surprise you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lynn.
Bye.
Thank you, Kent.
Bye.